Good afternoon. We will return to order. I just want to make a few comments as we come back after the recess from last week. As you recall, pursuant to Government Code Section Government Code Section 11128.5, which I know all of you have memorized, pursuant to that section, we adjourned and continued the April 21st board meeting, which we held last week in San Jose, to April 28th. We're now continuing the April 21st high-speed rail board meeting to today here at Sacramento City Hall, and this is consistent with what I announced last week, both at the April 21st meeting and that the staff posted to the high-speed rail website on April 22nd. The reason that the board adjourned that meeting to this later date, the April 21st meeting to this later date, was specifically to allow for more time for additional written comments focused on the staff recommended changes to the 2016 business plan that were presented by the staff last week in San Jose. I announced last week at that time that we would accept written public comments by email, over our website, or by letter, specifically about the April 21st staff recommended changes to the draft 2016 business plan, and that we would leave open that comment period through 5 p.m. on Monday, April 25th, 2016. We did ask the public to limit those comments and focus them on the proposed staff changes that were recommended at the April 21st board meeting. That written comment did close at 5 p.m. on Monday, and the staff has gathered these additional public comments, shared them with board members and the public. I also announced after the public comment period last week that the oral public comment period had closed for this two-day meeting, and that is what has been noticed and posted. So in fairness to everyone, because we had indicated that the comments would all be submitted through those means that I talked about, there will be no additional oral public comments taken today, which is really just the second day of this two-day meeting. Finally, at the April 21st board meeting, I stated that the board would deliberate and vote on the final 2016 business plan adoption only today. So that's the only item remaining before us today, and that, of course, this meeting is open to the public. So with that, let me ask the Secretary to please call the roll of members, and also if you could announce what locale you're speaking from.
Director Schenk. Vice Chair Richards.
I'm here in Fresno. There are no members from the public at this site.
Director Rossi. Director Correa.
Here in Los Angeles, present. There are no members of the public here as well.
Director Curtin.
Here, Sacramento.
Director Pasquette.
Here in Los Angeles.
Director Lowenthal.
Here in Los Angeles.
Chair Richard.
I'm here in Sacramento. First of all, I just want to say that I appreciate, because we did not really anticipate several weeks ago we were going to have this two-stage part of the last meeting. I want to just start by thanking my colleagues. I know this was logistically a little challenging, but we did want to give the public additional time after the staff recommendations. And I also want to thank the staff, because the logistical challenges fell mainly on their shoulders. And so, so far so good in terms of having good, clear connections to these venues. So with that, we do have a quorum, and we'll proceed with this item. Our CEO, Mr. Morales, is standing before the microphone here, and I'm going to ask Jeff to summarize, if you would, the comments that we received from the public pursuant to the staff recommendations made last week. So, Mr. Morales.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And for those who are not here in Sacramento, there is no PowerPoint, so you're not missing anything visually. Following on the first part of the meeting last week, we have provided the board and the public with 3 documents updated: the errata sheet, the staff recommended changes, as well as a new document, the draft revised business plan, which incorporates the errata and the staff recommended changes, as well as additional modifications based on the comments received over the course of the last week and board direction. And it's this document, so it's basically the revised version of the plan, which I'll refer to as we go through the comments, and the changes are marked in red in this document. After the first part of this meeting, we received over 90 comments after the first part, as you can imagine, and as you've seen in reviewing them, there was a significant range of topics and points of view in those comments. I would also point out that a significant number of the comments dealt with and raised criticisms about alignment issues and where we were on that. And I want to speak to that just to make it clear that we are not in any way, shape, or form ignoring those comments, but the business plan is not the forum for dealing with alignment issues. And we will take those comments into consideration as part of the environmental process, which is where the analysis and the decision-making regarding alignments takes place. As we discussed last week, the revised plan addresses the key issues that were raised during the comment period, and I'll talk about those briefly and point to where we've addressed them. As we discussed Southern California, there were a number of questions raised about and interest in seeing the commitment, recommitment to the Memorandum of Understanding and some greater clarity about how the partnership would work with Southern California, our Southern California partners, as we go forward. We have dealt with that. We've worked with those agencies to address their comments and their concerns, and you'll see in this document it's touched in a number of places, but the key areas are on pages 53 to 59. There's extensive discussion about Southern California, the projects that will be moving forward, the process, the partnership, the things that we'll be doing in coordination with them. Second area was the issue of Merced and the inclusion of Merced in part of the initial operating leg, as well as the addition of a stop in Madera, something which we had not done before but are now including. Again, there are mentions throughout the document, but the key pieces are on pages 52 and 53 of the document. Interest in San Francisco, our partner agencies there wanted to see stronger commitment and clarity about getting to Transbay Transit Center, as well as reinforcing the value of getting to San Francisco in terms of the growth in ridership and the revenues that would come with that and what that could mean for attracting private investment. And you'll see additional discussion of that, again, in several places, but primarily on page 12 and on pages 78 and 79 of the document. Bakersfield, as we discussed last week, again, there was concern about the interim station as it was originally proposed in Shafter and what that could mean. We've got language in here, page 11, specifically, which reaffirms our commitment to continuing and completing the environmental work and completing the process of getting into Bakersfield, as well as reevaluating if there is a need for an interim station, where that would be, and potentially that being in Wasco as opposed to Shafter to tie in with the Amtrak station there. At the board meeting last week, the first phase of this, there were several issues, two in particular that were raised by board members, and we had some discussion, and I wanted to touch on those. The first had to do with the role of public-private partnerships in delivery and how that might come into play. We have not made any assumptions about any new funding or specific financing that might come from a P3, but we have included discussion in a number of places about our unsolicited proposals policy, how that can help us gain insight from the private sector. We've added additional discussion about feedback from the private sector and what the potential benefits of P3 operations could be as we go forward in delivering the first phase of operation. Again, there's discussion throughout the document, but I would point specifically to pages 14, 39, 46, 61, and 71 as areas that we've added in response to board discussion last week. And Secondly, there was board discussion and interest in making sure that we had adequate discussion of Phase 2 and what our ongoing work is, what future work is necessary to advance those segments, and how we'll work in partnership with our local agencies there. And so we've added new sections, new discussion there. You'll find that on pages 60 to 62, a fairly extensive discussion of the Phase 2 commitment, what that looks like, and how we'll move that forward. Chair, those are the key issues. I do, just briefly, again, as you did, I want to thank the staff for their work on this. In an environment where no good deed goes unpunished, this is a pretty thankless task at times for them, but I think everyone's done a tremendous job, and it's been a lot of work to coordinate all of this, and I just want to express my appreciation to them for that and for the support of the board. And with that, I'll take any other questions or comments, and then would ask the board to provide direction on moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Morales. So let me start by going around the state, as it were, to get questions or input from board members. I'll start in Los Angeles with board members Lowenthal, Correa, and Pasquette, in whatever particular order you'd like to start first, to see if there are questions or comments from our colleagues.
And this is Bonnie. One question I have is, this is a business plan. Over the coming months and years, there undoubtedly will be some changes as we, the engineers are looking and so on and so forth. There will be changes. How will that be communicated to the public? Does the plan get rewritten? How often will it be rewritten? Since I'm new to the board, I really don't know what the future holds.
Actually, that is a great question to tee up so that members of the public and the legislature can have expectation about what would go on in a dynamic process as you've described it. Mr. Morales, do you want to start to respond to that, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Changes and even implementation will be reported in several different ways. Obviously, in 2 years, there'll be another business plan, which means we start the work on that next week, I think.
Just take the weekend off.
Sorry, guys. We do have there is a legislative requirement for a project update report every other year. So in the years between the business plans, there's a formal report that has specific statutory requirements in it. And so certainly any significant changes would be noted in that report. But then I would also note, of course, the monthly board meetings and through, in particular, the Finance and Audit Committee, all of the reports about where we are in terms of the status of implementing projects, advancing the environmental sections, the expenditure of dollars, all of those things are reported monthly as we go forward. And then certainly as we come forward with contracts to implement the direction that is laid out in this plan, that would be another occasion to both note progress and discuss and get approval on any change in direction as part of that process.
Is the operations report available on the website regularly?
Yes, it is. We post every month. The Finance and Audit Committee, like the board, typically meets every month. There may be a few months, 1 or 2 months a year, where the committee does not meet and there would not be reports in that month. But for every meeting there is, those are posted on the website and available to the public, and the public can attend those meetings as well.
I would just add, if I might, just a few other things to supplement what Mr. Morales just said. First of all, with respect to reports to the legislature, Mr. Morales mentioned the statutorily required reports that come every other year in between the business plans. But in addition to that, of course, as you know, and Mr. Correa knows better than anyone, there are ongoing legislative budget and other oversight-type mechanisms. And, of course, part of the discussion that we've seen this year from the legislature, both because of recommendations from the peer review group and actually with our supporting this notion of stronger, or I would say more visible legislative oversight, because I think from our perspective, anything that increases the confidence of the legislature and the public in what we're doing is a benefit. So we have these statutory deadlines and requirements every 2 years for a business plan and every in-between year for the operations or for the report. But I suspect that there will be ongoing opportunities in the legislative forum to be updating the legislative branch on our progress and on issues and on potential changes. And then second, with respect to our meetings, while I think we're very proud of the transparency of our Finance and Audit Committee and the extensive analysis that is done, the reporting that's done to that committee by the staff, all of which is public, again, a recommendation of the peer review group is that we have a more publicly accessible dashboard of performance metrics. We've been working on that, and so there should be even an enhanced opportunity for members of the public to have a sense of what we're doing, both in terms of costs and risks and so forth. But I would just say to Director Lowenthal and to all the rest of my colleagues that this is an area that, while I think that we stand head and shoulders above other governmental bodies, we really want to be top of the class all the time, and you know, your suggestions and other suggestions for how we do that are going to inform us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Director Correa, any questions or comments?
No comments or questions at this time. Well, actually, just wanted to say that I did speak to some of the transportation leaders in my district in Southern California, Orange County, and they concur with this plan.
Great. Thank you. Director Pascat.
No, I don't have any comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Richards in Fresno.
Only a comment, Mr. Chairman. I think the document itself is going to stand on its own merit. I think that in terms of your involvement in the 12, 14, and now the 16 plan, I think that from the perspective of process and content and presentation, each has gotten better. I think this certainly, while each one was supportable, this is certainly the one that is the high point thus far. And so, only with that comment, I am very satisfied with the work and the comments that Jeff and you have made with regards to the staff. I'm sure are echoed by all of us because it has been an inordinate amount of work. But the quality of the end product really is representative of the work they've done and the level of expertise that they've got. So with that, I'm certainly going to support the recommendation for approval and moving this plan forward to the legislature.
Thank you, Tom. Danny, I understand you have like 57 changes you want to make to Director Curtin.
I do, but I dare not raise any of them. No, not really. I do want to say, though, I want to ask you a question, Jeff, on the first point you made about Southern California. I believe, first of all, to the staff, to yourself, and echoing other comments, especially considering you only had a week for this last go-around. This is great work. There's a lot of stuff in there. Speaking for myself, I have a hard time just keeping up with the work you guys are doing, but I fully appreciate it. The question about Southern California, were the additional comments and clarifications, were they clarifications or were they actual sort of additions to commitments or greater explanations of existing commitments?
It basically is building off of the agreement that we reached with the Southern California agencies in 2012, a memorandum of understanding that committed us to jointly moving forward with improvements. And So that's the basis for the discussion. What you see in the plan is a combination of a reaffirmation to the principles and the commitments in that memorandum, an updating of where we are in terms of progress of moving some of those projects forward, a more specific list of projects and the types of projects that we anticipate moving forward in the very near future, and the process that we'll use for doing that. And
So, sort of an expanded definition of where we were and are?
yes, and a real game plan for moving forward. And I'll say we're already working with SCAG and with the other agencies to, we're looking beyond the adoption of the plan and toward implementation and making sure that we hit the ground running in terms of continuing to move these projects forward.
Right, and it sort of leads me to a point I want to make. First of all, thank you for additional clarification on the public-private partnership process. I don't think it was any real change, but people who read through this much more carefully than I may look at a sentence or two that says we welcome these opportunities for either unsolicited or good ideas on whether public-private partnership potential exists. I think they read that, and that helps them at least think through what they might want to propose. So I thank you for that, and thank everybody for putting that.
We're missing what you're saying, Danny.
Don't lose any sleep over that, Commissioner.
Too late, Danny.
I'll tell you when you can, wake up. I'll ring the bell. But it does lead me to say one thing, and it's right in the front. When I talk to people about this, and I'm in the political world, the question is, well, golly, why did you go from one part of the state to the other? And the premise there is that we're abandoning one half of the state and going to the other half of the state. And the reality is far more complex, and I think it's very well defined. But in the opening executive summary, it's clear that we're making strategic investments throughout the state. At the same time, we're focusing on completing one segment because that's where the finances lead, quite frankly. And third, just as importantly from my point of view, we're focusing on making sure we have as much, if not all, of the environmental requirements necessary around the state so that if opportunities do arise, we're in a position to take advantage of them. So what I try to do is say, well, we're not exactly shifting. Yes, we are focusing on completion of the northern section, and I want to thank Chairman Richard for the effort he's made on the Merced portion of it. I don't know if I'm stepping on any toes there, because I think it was brilliant and very important for the university connected to Silicon Valley and Fresno and so on and so forth. But to me, it's one big project, and you have to go where the resources sort of allow you to go until other resources appear. And, I was thinking about the state highway system. We're still talking about portions of the state highway system that haven't been completed. And they didn't discuss those portions 40 years ago when they started it. They put the backbone together, and it evolved over the course of time. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I try to reassure the people I work with that, there's been no abandonment. There's been no changes in that respect. We need to work all over the state, but this is one place we can get this portion done and up and running. We're not leaving everybody else out. And in fact, if we get enough cooperation and find resources, there'll be a lot of concurrent construction going on around the state. So I want to congratulate you for putting a great plan together with the team, and for Chairman Richard's leadership on this. It's been really informative and exciting for me.
I would just only respond in one way, which is I think another important element of this is the added element, an increasing element of coordination with the State Transportation Agency and what that brings to the table in terms of being able to leverage more dollars, more opportunities, and really look at this as a statewide rail system and not just our piece of it.
Right.
And that's going to keep things moving all over the state.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, because while it's nice to hear nice things said from a respected colleague, but I really can't take any credit for the Merced decision, because picking up on what our CEO, Mr. Morales, just said, I think the breakthrough idea there really came from Brian Kelly's office and came from Chad Edison, who is the Deputy Secretary for Rail. And Secretary Kelly is a huge supporter of high-speed rail, sees it as key to the future of the state. And one of the things that he did was he recruited from the Federal Railroad Administration this extremely capable person in Chad Edison, who basically was able to help us cut the Gordian knot of how to serve a community that very much wanted to be served and very much deserved to be served, and do it in a way that could be effective and efficient and more achievable budget-wise. So thank you, Danny, for the nice words, but I'm gonna pass that over to Cal STA, because they really helped us get there on that. So if I might, at this point, I'd like to just make a couple of comments, and before I do, just clarify a few things with Mr. Morales. First, Jeff, you said something very important at the beginning with respect to a large portion of the comments being from people who were concerned about alignment issues. And you said that the business plan is not where we deal with alignment issues. And I think that was an important thing to say. I just want to underscore it. Would it be accurate to add to that that nothing in the business plan that we do prejudices any future specific alignment, whether it's into the Los Angeles basin or into San Jose or into San Francisco is somewhat circumscribed by statute, but I think I'm correct on that. Would you agree that nothing in this business plan would prejudice any of those future decisions on alignment?
I want to make sure I say, I agree. You're correct. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Because I just want to give that reassurance to citizens. I know as we come into these communities, there are issues, and we need to be sensitive to those issues. But the business plan, as it's prescribed by the legislature, is for a different purpose, and we do have a full environmental process that looks at the alignment issues.
And that environmental process, those processes are underway, and the comments that we received that really relate to that will be factored into and considered in the ongoing environmental process.
Okay. The second thing is I appreciate the staff's work and your work specifically with our Southern California transportation partners in providing that restatement and reassurance that they were seeking of the commitment that we made. And one of the things that we indicated to the legislature was that it's not just a commitment that we made, because the legislature, in passing Senate Bill 1029 in 2012, appropriated a portion of our state bonds to fulfill that commitment, and we're very focused on helping to unlock those dollars as soon as we can. But again, just for the record, it's my understanding that in addition to their oral expressions, that basically they did formally comment by letter that the additional language that has been developed was satisfactory in giving that restatement of our commitment. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And we've all committed jointly to now moving forward and implementing this.
And that's going to continue to be a very strong partnership led by a number of really extraordinarily capable transportation leaders in Southern California, Hassan Akrada and Art Leahy and Phil Washington and the many transportation agency leaders in the counties there. So that's good. And then similarly on Bakersfield, my understanding is that with the staff recommendation to not have an interim station, that while we know we still have a lot of alignment questions and other questions in Bakersfield, that this has been favorably received?
Yes, it has. And the board heard from
yes.
planner from the city of Bakersfield at the meeting last week, and next month's board meeting will be in Bakersfield, where we'll I think underscore those commitments and by showing the progress that we made and doing it jointly with the city of Bakersfield, which is a significant turnaround from where things have been, and we're committed to continuing that.
So I just want to say before we turn to vote to adopt this, just a few things about the significance of it. First of all, just to reiterate and underscore what our CEO said, coming out of the meetings, coming out of the draft business plan, which we always knew would be a dynamic document. It has been in the past, and perhaps even more so this year. These four large-scale issues, in addition to other things that we needed to look at, of a reiteration of our commitment to moving forward in Southern California. I think we've said in front of the legislature and in Southern California that, well, San Jose may get trains first, but you're likely to see dollars first in the Los Angeles basin and Orange County and throughout the Southland. Because we're committed, and again, as Mr. Morales said, with the partnership of the California State Transportation Agency to get projects moving that will have immediate significance and ultimately lay the groundwork for full high-speed rail. So that was one issue. Finding a way to get Merced and Madera back into the initial operating segment. We're going to have to work with them continuously on that, but we're very optimistic that that is going to happen. And we're committed immediately to doing the ridership and cost studies. And just as we were able to do with Anaheim several years ago, I think that this will increasingly be integrated into the plan. In San Francisco, restating the importance of getting into San Francisco, getting in the right way. And then Bakersfield, setting us up for when we do launch south. All of these were issues. All of them have been addressed in ways that, well, maybe aren't fully fleshed out, are satisfactory to the partners that we will need to work with closely as we go forward. So I just want to express thanks to those partners as well as to our staff for making that work. And then finally, I just want to say this about what I think is the significance of this business plan. Contrary to some commentary, I think most of us at the High Speed Rail Authority were very excited about this business plan because for the first time we're able to tell people how something of great significance can actually get built, how it can get built, how it can get funded, what it will connect, and when it will be done. And up until this year, those have all been largely planning based and aspirational. And now, if we continue to receive the allocation of funds that the legislature has seen fit to give us, with the other funding that's available to us, we can open America's first operating high-speed rail system and connect two really important regions of our state. One that is the engine of not only California's economy, but the national economy, and to a certain extent the global economy in Silicon Valley. And the other, an area in the Central Valley of historic underinvestment, and where despite a number of wonderful communities and the most productive agricultural land anywhere on the planet, there is also associated with that unemployment, poverty, and a lack of economic diversity. And the opportunity, I think, that presents for those communities came into stark relief, not that we intended it this way, but in what happened with Merced and Madera. And as those communities pushed us very, very hard for inclusion, what came out was a real sense of how vitally important this connection could be for the future of those regions and the broader Central Valley. I think that's a very important story to come out of this business plan. So for me, the two big issues here are, one, for the first time we can tell the legislature and the people that they represent that we can and will build high-speed rail in California, and that once we do that, that will unlock not only the latent private sector investment that's there, but I think additional public support as well. And that's an exciting prospect. And the second thing is how important it turns out that high-speed rail is to these communities. And the excitement that we've seen in San Jose, the excitement that we've seen in San Francisco, the need for us to make sure that people in Bakersfield and Merced and Palmdale and Anaheim and Burbank know that we're still committed to driving to get to their communities as fast as we can, and seeing the pent-up interest and desire and demand for this connectivity there. To me, those are the two hallmarks of this business plan. It is just a document, but I think it really lays out a course for a California future that's productive and exciting. So I just want to end where I began, thanking everybody who was involved in putting this together, thanking my colleagues who worked very, very hard on this to not only understand the issues, but to challenge and question. And I think this is a product that we should all be proud of to transmit to the legislature in advance of the statutory deadline and in a way that we believe fully fulfills our duties pursuant to the statute. So with that, unless there are other questions, I think we have a motion in front of us for adoption of the 2016 final business plan for approval by this body and transmittal to the legislature. Could I have one of my colleagues move that?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Curtin, and I believe that was seconded by Director Lowenthal, if I heard that
Correct.
Okay. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Schenk, Vice Chair Richards,
Yes.
Director Rossi, Director Correa,
Aye.
Director Curtin,
Yes.
Director Pasquette,
Yes.
Director Lowenthal,
Yes.
Chair Richard.
Yes. And with that, it's adopted. Thank you all very, very much. And there being no other business before the High-Speed Rail Authority today, I want to again thank the staff for the logistics, which I think worked out very well on short notice and in a challenging situation. Thank you again to my colleagues for making yourselves available. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.